Eagles-Ravens, the game of the weekend, one of the biggest matchups, just went final, and the Eagles feel inevitable at this point. They win 24-19, another 100-plus yard game from Saquon Barkley, but the bigger story coming out of this one, in my opinion, Justin Tucker. 2 more misses on the season. Are we pressing the panic button for what was, heading into this year, I believe, the most accurate kicker in NFL history, who's since lost that spot because he's just been so inaccurate over the course of this season?
Yeah, look, Renner, I don't know if Harry told you, but there's nothing I love to talk about more than kickers. I could have spent this whole podcast talking about only kickers, and for Justin Tucker to have this game after he's been struggling all year, and as bad as he's been all year, this is the first time in his career he has missed 3 kicks in a single game. He's missed 2 field goals before, he's missed an extra point before, but he's never missed 2 field goals and an extra point in the same game. And really, you have to start worrying because the Ravens look like a playoff team. I'm pretty sure they're going to make the playoffs. They're 8-5 at this point. They'd have to totally choke and collapse down the stretch, not to make the playoffs. But if you are the Ravens and you're in the wild card round and you need a 47-yard field goal to win, you're going to be crossing your fingers and pray to whoever you believe in that Justin Tucker can hit this, because he has not shown that he can hit these kicks this season. And the ones that he missed against the Eagles, it's not like these were big fourth quarter ones where there's a lot of pressure. It's just everything about what he's doing is off. He missed the 47-yarder to his left. That's where he's been missing all his kicks this season. So what does he do? He goes back, tries one beyond 50, overcompensates, and misses it right. That's why you can't just switch your kicking steps in the middle of a game. That's why kickers tend to miss. If they miss a bad one left, they probably do it again. And it's just, he's kind of in his own head right now. I don't think he knows what to do to fix this problem. And that's a Ravens problem, because if he can't fix it, no one can fix it. And their head coach is a special teams coordinator. So I think he is actually more worried than anyone, even though I don't think John Harbaugh will let on.
Yeah, it used to be the Ravens cross the 40, 3 points automatic. It's like they cross the 40, you don't even have to think about it. But now, 6 misses this year, and it kind of started a little bit last year because he missed 4 from beyond 50 last year, when that was, he never did. Not never did, but like he was not, that was darn near automatic for him anytime he was in that range. And now it's like, you're going to need those come playoff time, because if they had both of those, they lost by 5. Obviously, it would have been vastly different at the end, the final drive and how it went down. But that was the difference in the game in this one. Let's get to the Eagles side of this, because obviously the Ravens, they're still going to make the playoffs. The AFC wildcard picture, we'll get to it in a little bit in the whole playoff picture, but pretty clear cut how that's going to go down. But from the Eagles' perspective, they are very much in play for this 1 seed after rattling off, what is it now, 7 straight wins? Coming out of their bye week, just look like a completely different team. Can they unseat the Lions for the 1 seed 1? And can this team win the Super Bowl too?
I think to get the 1 seed, obviously they are going to need the Lions to lose at least 1 game, if not 2. And now you look at the Lions schedule. They still have to play the Packers, the Bills, the 49ers. They close the season against the Vikings. There are a lot of possible losses on the schedule. So I don't think it's completely crazy to see Philly coming in and stealing the 1 seed, because this is really, they have Carolina left. Carolina looks pretty good, so maybe that's not a gimme anymore, but they still play the Giants, the Cowboys, and then they have games against the Steelers and Commanders that are a little more toss up. So I think Philly could absolutely steal the 1 seed. I probably wouldn't bet on it just because the Lions, have that game lead already. But I think from Philadelphia's perspective, you're an Eagles fan. You sat through a total nightmare last year of that second half collapse. And a lot of that is because the offense didn't play as well down the stretch as it did early in the season. And it feels like Saquon Barkley is that guy who plugged that big hole on the ship. Your ship's sinking. Barkley's the guy who plugged it. Well, guess what? Your offense can't collapse if you just keep giving the ball to Saquon Barkley, because he's just going to run down everyone's throat. And that gives Jalen Hurts time to fix whatever his issues are, allows the offense to get all on the same page. So I think Saquon Barkley is very worthy of being the MVP conversation, even though he likely won't win it because he's a quarterback. But it feels like he's the one missing piece this team needed. He's here, and there's no reason they can't win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, if you can run the ball the way they just did against what was the number 1 run defense in the NFL, I don't know who's going to stop him right at this point, because when you add Jalen Hurts in and that run his legs as a factor, and then just the offensive line and how insanely good it is from all left to right, not a single guy in that's a issue as a run blocker, just pure mass, pure physical dominance, week in and week out. I think I can run on anybody. Now, the problem is this passing game has been Jets level of effective all season long. It's just been difficult to watch at times. This week was really no different, and this should have been a get right game against what's been a poor secondary at times in the Baltimore Ravens. Still, Hurts 11 of 19, 118 yards only passing. Obviously, they didn't need to pass in this one to win the football game, but it's something that someone's going to probably stop the run. Someone's going to make a play left-handed, especially when you look at the playoff picture in the NFC. There's just so many good defenses that they'll likely have to go up against. That, do we trust them if it's a Jalen Hurts 40 drop back game? Do we trust that?
And I think that's a great point, because this was, if you want to see Jalen Hurts prove that he can put up huge numbers against a good team, this was the night to do it. Go put out 250, 275, 300 passing yards against a Ravens defense that literally cannot stop any quarterback except for somehow Jalen Hurts. I mean, I was shocked to see his final numbers. Below 150 was shocking. He didn't even hit 120. As you said, it was 118. So it is surprising, and it does seem like that's going to happen in the playoffs, because that's what teams do. They make you play left-handed. Everybody goes full Belichick once they get to the postseason. They say, you know what happens if we stuff the box and we take away Saquon Barkley? Can Jalen Hurts beat us? And right now, I think that is the one thing that kind of would scare me away from picking them to win the Super Bowl.
Still, though, this might be, with how they've played, especially since the bye, that might be the best defense in the NFL. They're just so good and so talented too, that they look like last year. That was the issue, right? It was the defensive fall off. They had so much talent, but why wasn't it performing? This year, it's the opposite. It's like they got so much talent, and every guy who is one of their star players, or should be one of their star players, seemingly is playing as such. And the additions at linebacker and Zach Bond, Nakobe Dean, seemingly every single week, making big plays. The Vic Fangio effect cannot be understated. So, yeah, I tend to agree. I think the Eagles can still win the Super Bowl, but I am worried about the pass game. All right, Bucks, Panthers just went final. An insane ending in overtime. Panthers were in field goal range. Bryce Young had driven them down after the Bucks punted it away on their very first drive. Would have had a game-winning field goal. Chuba Hubbard fumbles the rock. Bucks go back the other way, kick a field goal to end it. So now we have a tie atop the NFC South. We'll get to that full playoff picture here in a second with both the Falcons and Bucks 6-6. Obviously, though, the Falcons have the tiebreaker with those 2 wins. Our last of the 6 points, though, on Sunday night here. Just a little Thursday, Friday recap. A lot of ground to cover with 4 games. What was your biggest takeaway, biggest thing to note from those 4 games we had over Thanksgiving?
I would probably say that the Packers are a lot better than I thought they were. And I thought they were good. Uh-oh, did I steal your answer?
No, I said music to my ears. That's perfect.
Oh,
I just want
yeah.
Keep waxing. I love to hear it.
You didn't have your Green Bay shirt on, so I forgot that you paid me to say this. But look, I thought the Packers were good, but I was kind of on the fence with how good they were. But you have a Dolphins team that won 3 straight. They were absolutely desperate because they really needed that win to kind of stay in the AFC playoff race, not eliminated. But when teams are in desperation mode, especially talented teams, that's when they're the most dangerous. So I thought the Dolphins would go in there and give Green Bay a game, if not win it. And that didn't happen at all. I feel like early in the game, Miami had that muffed punt. And after Green Bay scored off that drive, it was just over. I mean, they were better on both sides of the ball. This game was never in doubt. The Green Bay Packers were absolutely a better team. And it's crazy. Maybe you have a theory on this, but last season, Jordan Love's first as the starter. I mean, by November 1st, Packers fans were ready to bench him. It was just, he was so bad. Caught fire the second half of the season, and we're kind of seeing that November 1st thing again, where he looked okay the first half of the season, and now he's on fire again. So if Jordan Love is bringing his A game every week, this team could beat anyone.
I think I was when I was watching the game on Thursday, my takeaway was I think Matt LaFleur just saves his good plays for the second half of the season. Like what he has done the past couple weeks in terms of scheming it up has been impressive to watch. He's kind of like been the anti-Cliff Kingsbury in that he just, the first half, just testing stuff out. And the second half, that's when he actually implements all the good stuff. That's, I'm obviously being a little tongue in cheek about it, but like he's been definitely in his bag of late, having sort of that second act to a season in terms of once they see your play, see what you're all about in the first half, do you have more in your bag that you can dig into to still keep defenses off balance. And he 100% had that in this one. A lot of stuff, a lot of big plays that just guys are running wild against the Miami secondary. That's been one of the stingier pass defenses in the NFL this season. And I do think the first half was difficult to judge this Packers team by, whether it was that really weird Brazil game on that terrible turf, whether it was Jordan Love's injuries, trying to play with his MCL and then his groin, and just never felt like he could get into a rhythm or felt like he could go, a stretch with being healthy with all his playmakers on the football field. And now he's finally had it, right? He's finally had it the past few weeks. And so this was what I kept saying. I was like, we need to see if I think the Packers are going to be able to compete with now the Eagles and the Lions atop of the NFC. If they're really going to be able to go into Detroit or go into Philly and win a playoff game, it's going to be because the offense looks like it did on Thursday night. It's going to be because Jordan Love lives up to what everyone thought he could be when they were saying, maybe this is the top quarterback in the NFC. It's going to have to be that. On Thursday, it kind of looked like it. On Thursday, I was the first time, maybe not the first time, I think at times they've had, but where I was like, okay, in a game with that sort of billing against a team that's been super hot in the Miami Dolphins, to come out and just bury them offensively the way they did, that if you want to believe in the Green Bay Packers, that was the game to watch. That was it. So I can't help but agree wholeheartedly with your assessment there. My biggest one, though, Matt Eberflus getting fired, man. I just I cannot believe my eyes what I saw. I was on CBS Sports Network. I'm talking on camera. I have my phone underneath me. I'm watching this game as we're discussing whatever, Thursday Night Football and just other football storylines, previewing the later games. And I am like 32 seconds. All right. A handful more plays. We're thinking like 4 more plays at that point. I didn't think at any point that I'm just like seeing it tick down. And then I'm seeing them like audible, make adjustments. This guy get on the line. This guy get off the line. I'm just like, this is going to be it. Like, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. And he overthrows it. And it's just like, one, it's hard to blame Matt Eberflus too much for that. To me, that is quarterback situation right there. You either take the timeout right away, or the quarterback knows just like, don't do that, right? So like, don't take 20 seconds and audible and change the play. But after that, I was like, if it keeps happening under a guy, right? If things of this nature keep happening, at some point he's allowing it, and at some point it's just like the locker room's gone. And I do think that's the biggest thing, is just hearing people talk about the team and their direction, and just every single week in and week out, the reaction from players after losses is not what you want from a well-coached football team. It just doesn't reflect a well-coached football team. And at that point, I think it had to happen. It just had to happen for the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not even, look, you can blame Caleb Williams. I think it's absolutely fair, but he's a rookie quarterback. This isn't like Patrick Mahomes making that mistake. So if a rookie's out there making that mistake, I think that's on the coaching staff, where you need to practice these situations. What happens where Matt Eberflus needs to say, Caleb, if we're ever in the situation, you have to get the snap off with at least 10 seconds left. And then Eberflus needs to tell himself, if the snap's not off, I need to call timeout so that we don't just give the game away, which is what happened. So I do think it's absolutely fair to blame the coaching. You almost had to fire him. You look at what they've done this season, that 5-17 record, worst in NFL history in one-score games. And you look at the Commanders game, that Hail Mary, the play before it, when they were in prevent and just gave Washington 13 free yards. Jaden Daniels wasn't going to throw the ball 70 yards in the air. So the Hail Mary wouldn't have happened if that play before. The blocked field goal where he has a kicker, Cairo Santos, who has a low trajectory, had already had a 43-yard field goal blocked earlier in the season. So try and get more yardage. You have plenty of time. You had a timeout. So that's 3 losses, I think, you can pin on Eberflus just this year. And for me, if I'm running the Bears, that's 3 strikes and you're out. That sounds about right.